Welcome to the second in our series of studies in the book known as the Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon. Today we're looking at chapter 1 verses 2 to 7, and I'm going to read this passage to you in a moment, but it would be helpful if you also had an open Bible with you. I'm reading from the New International Version, so after the introductory verse it says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. For your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let's hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. We rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine. How right they are to adore you. Dark am I, yet lovely, daughters of Jerusalem. Dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am dark, because I am darkened by the sun. My mother's sons were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards. My own vineyard I had to neglect. Tell me, you whom I love, where you graze your flock and where you rest your sheep at midday. Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your friends?" As we commence this second study in the Song of Songs, there is one technical matter that we need to get out of the way. Because it's not always clear from the text itself, modern versions of the Bible try to offer us assistance in our reading of these songs by suggesting who is speaking in the different verses and the different sections of the book. The problem is that they often disagree among themselves. So as we continue through these studies, I will be making my own suggestions, but I recognise not all agree. However, when it's not clear who is speaking, it is far more important that we can learn from the message of the book as a whole. At their marriage, my son-in-law welcomed the guests with the observation that his wife had been planning the event for a very long time. After a pause, he added, "In fact, since she was born." He was, of course, right. Like many young girls, my daughter had been anticipating and fantasizing about her wedding day from as soon as she had understood that one day, as she hoped, her chance would come. And there is something of this in the present passage, especially in verses 2 to 4. Here, in verse 4, the bride-to-be excitedly anticipates her first night together with her husband. She imagines herself like a queen, hurriedly and excitedly slipping away from the wedding feast with her king and being willingly and excitedly drawn to the marriage bed. In verse 2, she imagines the moment when his arousing kisses will far surpass the enjoyment of the wine that has been lavishly provided at the banquet. She even finds her husband's cologne to be an aphrodisiac. But there are subtle tones in these 3 verses that we must not miss. It's not simply that she is looking forward to sex, but above all to intimacy with this man. So her language about his cologne slips into a description of him. If his perfume is arousing, it is because he himself is lovely. And for this very reason, other young women have found him attractive, and she finds him sexy. At the risk of appearing sexist, it appears to me that young men far too often only see a girl as a sex object, who offers the potential for meeting their basic instincts. Young women, however, are frequently, though far from always, more discerning. Like this young girl, they too have sexual longings, but they find especially attractive those young men who, to use a much despised word, are kind. So our young woman longs for great sex, but not merely to satiate a God-given urge, but to seal her intimacy with a lovely young man, who she thinks of admiringly as her king. It's at this point that the choir interrupts the young woman's solo part. They may well be the young women of whom the bride-to-be has just spoken. They're excited for their friend, even if they are a bit jealous, and they single out especially the love of the young couple. Given the recent description of lovemaking being superior to a vintage wine, one assumes that they are celebrating what both they anticipate will be a great first night, but also the love of which this is the consummation. They recognise that love is more than sex, and that sex is best experienced as the consummation of a deepening love. This is a theme that will be often repeated throughout this collection of songs. Sex is worth waiting for, as it will only be really enjoyed to the full if it is rooted in a secure and loving relationship. At this point in the text there's a sudden mood change, though the young woman continues to speak. Having echoed the words of her friends when she proudly proclaims at the end of verse 4, "They are certainly right to love you," doubts begin to settle in. So as with many young people in an emerging relationship, this young woman begins to doubt her own self-worth and seeks reassurance. Interestingly, the concern she expresses here is with her appearance. There is therefore nothing new under the sun. So she appears in verses 5 and 6 to negatively compare herself with the sophisticated girls of Jerusalem, the front page fashion models of her day. They had ample opportunity to use the right cosmetics so that they had just the right fashionable skin tones. The young woman, however, comes from a different level of society where the necessity to work outside has given her the wrong tan. Then, at the end of verse 6, the young woman makes another point that is far from clear. The reference to neglecting her vineyard may well, however, have sexual overtones. If so, it may imply that she is saying she has not had the opportunity to make herself look sexy. At the same time, where she refers to herself as lovely at the beginning of verse 5, she may be suggesting she has an eyeglass figure. So petulantly she tells the fashion-conscious girls that she has a better figure than any of them, even if she does not have had time to indulge in prolonged beauty therapy sessions or dress in the currently fashionable and sexy manner. But petulance can only go so far. She needs reassurance from the only one who really counts to her. The language and imagery of verse 7 is not easy to understand, and any suggestion can be challenged. However, in its context, it appears that the young woman is trying to snatch some time from her lunch break with her boyfriend and wants to meet with him without his chums being present. She is longing for what we today call quality time, time in which her relationship with the young man she loves can grow in depth and intimacy, and bring with it the assurance she craves before she returns to the critical gaze of the girls in her workplace. All of which is psychologically satisfying. The admixture of excited anticipation of what might be, alongside the uncertainties that the early stage of a new relationship bring, will be recognised by many. It can be, and frequently is, agonising. At such times questions of self-worth and comparison with others inevitably abound. This young woman was neither the first nor the last to ask, "Am I good enough for him?" And though she longs to have sex with her new boyfriend, she is canny enough to recognise that a quick grope in the back of a car or on a creaky settee while her parents are out is not what deep down she really longs for. She seeks a deeply fulfilling sexual experience that is found not in a mere frenetic genital exchange, but is part of a mutual self-giving of one to the other in committed, loving, and repeated embrace.